Gentlemen, my father always impressed on me that before you can exist as an individual, the first thing you have to accept is duty. The second thing is respect for authority. And the third thing is to develop a strong mental discipline. Gentlemen, we're going to have a football team, and we're going to win some football games. You know why? You're going to have confidence in me and my system. By being alert, you're going to make fewer mistakes than your opponents. By working harder, you're going to out-execute, out-block, and out-tackle every opponent that comes your way. I've never been a losing coach, and I don't intend to start now. Now, Max, Molly, and Steven, the quality of life is a full measure of your personal commitment to excellence and to victory, not only in football, but in every endeavor.
Welcome into First Take, a very special day. It is hour number 16 in our 28 hours of fantasy as we take the baton from Mike and Mike. We are really excited to be a part of the Fantasy Football Marathon presented by DraftKings. A lot of guests will be joining us, including Matthew Berry, Mark Schlereth, and our Adam Schefter.
Who's getting updates as we speak.
Yes.
Steven, hey, what's going on? Molly?
Hour 16
Max, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
What's up, big boy?
I would never know you didn't sleep. Full of energy, ready to go.
Honestly, slept about 10, 15 minutes, a little cat nap about 4 in the morning.
Wow.
Feel as if it doesn't matter. Sleep's overrated.
There we go. There we
See,
go.
I disagree. I think sleep is underrated. By people like you.
Sleep is overrated. Let's have an argument about it. Let's debate whether sleep is necessary or not.
We're just happy we have you. And because of you, look at this. We've already reached over 1 million drafted teams on ESPN.com. Off to a great start
That's
here.
Because of Matthew Berry.
Yes. Matthew Berry, too, will be with us later. We're looking forward to that. But, guys, we're going to start in reality with some NFL news, so let's get into it. The NFL has told 4 players that they will be suspended indefinitely if they do not cooperate with the league's investigation into allegations linking them to steroids. Steelers linebacker James Harrison, Packers linebackers Clay Matthews and Julius Peppers, and free agent linebacker Mike Neal were given until August 25th to submit interviews. Allegations about the players were made in an Al Jazeera documentary that also implicated Peyton Manning, who was cleared by the league after his retirement. The Players Association had previously said there's no evidence to merit an investigation. Last night, a spokesman said the NFLPA had no comment at this time. Stephen A., start with you here. Should the players have to meet with the NFL?
Without question, they absolutely should, and that's why I personally requested Adam Schefter that you be here in attendance for this, because I needed to talk to you and not just Max about my position here. Look, when it comes to things that involve monetary value, not to say that the players, anytime players suspension, obviously, you know, you're going to cost them some money. But when you have an argument like the NFLPA won years ago when $100 million had to be added to their coffers, and each additional team had about $2 million in cap space or whatever the case may be, because they found out that the owners was kind of, you know, trying to shortchange. I understand those arguments. What has some members of the Players Association against me at times is that I look at disciplinary measures as it pertains to the power of the commissioner of the National Football League. And I say, what's the fighting about? This kind of stuff to me is stuff that negatively affects the players' dollars, because you're a union rep, you're the executive director of the Players Association in DeMaurice Smith. You're going to have to go into those coffers again, whether it's Jeffrey Kessler with you or whomever, and you're going to go to court to fight on behalf of the players so they don't have to meet with Roger Goodell as it pertains to substance abuse and the integrity of the game per se, because obviously if you're trying to cheat in any way, that's something that has to be addressed. I'm saying that if the commissioner and the National Football League wants to sit down and talk to a Clay Matthews, a Julius Peppers, a James Harrison, a Mike Neal, who's a free agent, then guess what? You go ahead and you do that, because you're fighting a losing battle to me if you're making the claim that I don't have to meet with you. You want to lean on a collective bargaining agreement. Obviously, there's 2 different interpretations of it. But if Peyton Manning is already on the record, they're saying that he went through the process and he's been cleared and he can move on with his life. How true that is or not is irrelevant to me. They're acknowledging in their mind that they believe he went through due process. Therefore, the rest of the players who are still playing in this league need to go through the due process of being interviewed by us, as opposed to issuing a statement and being able to rely just upon that. To me, fighting this is just another example of the the contentious relationship that exists between Roger Goodell and DeMaurice Smith, and the players are ultimately the ones who end up getting screwed over because those dollars that are in your coffers that are never as deep as the pockets of the owners who obviously finance the commissioner's office, the league office, and all things pertaining to that, it's a losing battle. That is the way that I view it. You guys go ahead.
Let me just say that you talk about due process. And my first reaction, my gut reaction is what yours is, which is that, come on, guys, just cooperate with the investigation, or do you have something to hide? This is pretty straightforward. The league seems reasonable when they say there's no dispute that players are obligated to cooperate with the league's investigation. You have to give meaningful responses, etc. Not just come in and be interviewed, but actually answer questions. That all seems very reasonable. But it's when you talk about due process, it's kind of like saying someone's accused of a crime. Why are they lawyering up? Because there is something called due process. And when the league says there's no dispute that you have to cooperate and you have to come in and talk, actually there is a dispute. As Mike Florio laid out the case in Pro Football Talk really well, I thought, about what constitutes enough evidence to impel a player to come in and talk on the record. In fact, it's if he's guilty of a crime, or if the league has enough evidence to suggest to the commissioner that he could be, not just a media report that suggests that it might be the case. That doesn't constitute enough evidence, it certainly would seem, but that the league has independently somehow, or by some other, found evidence to suggest that the commissioner really does have a reason to get these guys to make statements. And then even then, that's part of an appeals process under the PED policy. Now, there's a separate issue about the kind of broad powers that the commissioner has under the integrity of the game rule, right? Like for the integrity of the game. That's what people keep bringing up when it comes to Goodell in these situations. But again, there has to be some kind of evidence of guilt first, not just a media report. In the case of Tom Brady, they confiscate footballs, they find air pressure different. That's a little different than here where Al Jazeera has a report and now the commissioner wants them to come and answer questions.
Well, let me say this, that when you look at the events that have transpired, there was a catcher in baseball, Taylor Threadbare.
I don't recall.
Catcher.
Okay.
Don't recall. That's close to enough to his name.
Okay.
He was suspended 80 games for being mentioned in this report. Okay? And the NFL in this particular case, whether we like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, has the hammer. They have said, you're either going to talk to us or we're going to suspend you. That's the rule. And the NFL's powers have been further enhanced over the last few months by the Adrian Peterson decision, by the Tom Brady decision.
Both overturned.
So the NFL is using the powers that have been exercised through the CBA, that have been granted to them, that have been affirmed by the courts, and they're saying, you're going to talk to us or we're going to take action. Now, again, I don't know what evidence they do or don't have. I don't know what the players did or didn't do. I'm telling you the way they're laying it out.
And they have legal precedent because they were upheld, not overturned. The decisions were upheld by the courts, and so so now that's why the NFLPA
it was
is
upheld,
fighting
but the ruling that was initially in favor of Adrian Peterson was overturned.
That's why the NFLPA has spent all that money fighting it, because they don't want the league to be able to point to precedent over the rule of law, which seems to be in black and white, not arguing for the commissioner.
Let's go back to Adam here. This is Jared Bell's column. He's talking about the union is concerned about precedent. You know, Charlie Sly, having, his accusations were not verified. Therefore, the NFLPA agreeing to these interviews, more could follow in the future based on allegations. That's their position, whereas the NFL contends that this is due diligence. Although the players submitted statements in July that reiterated their positions of innocence, it didn't provide the exchange of dialogue that the NFL seeks that will be fueled by follow-up questions. So what are we saying here? Let's go through all the minutia. Essentially what you're saying, if you're the players, is that, look, we issued a statement that in and of itself should be more than enough. Who the hell are you that you think you get to make that decision? It's not the court of law. It's the court of the NFL. Correct me if I'm wrong, Adam Schefter. The CBA is the Bible. I mean, it is
what it is. But they're pointing to the CBA. The players are pointing to the CBA.
Wait. The Players Association usually points to the CBA. You have a point when you're talking about dollars and cents and what you're trying to hide or what's owed to us, etc. But when you're talking about player behavior, when you're talking about things that could potentially have compromised the league, that's at the discretion of the commissioner. Now, you can argue and you can fight it, but think about what they're fighting here. They're literally fighting going to his office and sitting down and talking
Right, but
to
no,
do you have the
but if
nerve?
that doesn't-
I mean, do you really? I mean, can we just put that in its proper perspective? You are literally fighting as a players association. Correct me if I'm wrong, Adam. You are literally fighting as a players association to avoid going before the commissioner and answering questions.
And I'll tell you why.
That's ridiculous.
No, I'll tell you why. On the surface, it seems ridiculous, but think about it for a second.
They're calling any player they want at any time.
Yes, no. In other words, why should you be forced to respond to hearsay in the absence of any evidence? Now, if the commissioner's office wants to put, or the NFL wants to put forward evidence, aside from the Al Jazeera report where they say this is enough to force us to ask you to make us feel like we need to ask questions and to compel you to come in and answer those questions, that's one thing. But the union is fighting the idea that you can just call us in to talk to us about whatever, whenever.
The union's doing exactly what it should be doing. And the NFL is trying to exercise its right. Again, I brought that catcher, Taylor Teagarden, suspended 80 games, was named in this report. I don't know what he did and didn't do either, but he was suspended for 80 games by Major League Baseball after that league looked into the situation. I don't know what the situation is here, but again, the NFL wants to find out. So the NFL has said very clearly, you're going to talk to us by August 25th, or you're going to be suspended by August 26th.
And the only point that I'd like to make in terms of jumping off the Adam Schefter, Max Kellerman bandwagon is on this one nugget. The union is doing the right thing here. I disagree with that because if you're fighting,
what should the union be doing?
What I'm saying is this: go talk to them. If the league wants to have a conversation with you, now if they want to punish you, wait a minute.
If the cops take someone off the street and say we want to come have a conversation without your attorney present, for example, is that always a smart thing to do?
Wait a minute. The NFL.
Because there's due process.
Wait a minute. You brought it up. The NFL in no way said that the union can't be present. To my knowledge, they didn't sit there and say DeMaurice Smith or Jeffrey Kessler or one of their lawyers, general counsel, whomever. They didn't say they couldn't be in attendance. What they said is, we want to talk to you. So at the end of the day, this has become a national story because you don't want to sit down and talk with your employer. Can we put it in its proper perspective?
No, I don't think that's what it's really about.
Really?
This is a proxy war being fought with these guys as pawns.
At the expense of the players' dollars.
Yes, the battle is being fought between the NFL and the NFLPA. And what's at stake is the NFL wants to reinforce precedent that's already been found so they can do whatever they want whenever. And the NFLPA is saying, no, we're resisting that so we can enforce what we believe is in the contract.
All I'm saying, presenting both sides, I understand where both sides are coming from. Look, Ryan Zimmerman and Ryan Howard, that same case, right?
That's right.
Both fully cooperated when Major League Baseball wanted to question them. So the league is making its request. If the players have nothing to hide, you go talk to them.
No, first of all, Major League Baseball, I don't know how exemption from antitrust affects that legally. I don't know. I'm not an attorney. But, you know, all the leagues show that if you cooperate, you are treated more leniently. That in and of itself is not a good enough reason to cooperate if you're a players' union and you're trying to enforce what you believe is an agreement.
Let's take it a